Thank you all for coming out in this lovely weather. We appreciate it. My name is Heidi Day. I am the Yang Gang envoy, and we just have cool titles like that in the Yang campaign. I have a funny story about how I became a Yang supporter. I like to joke it was a mistargeted Facebook ad. I'm a South Dakotan. Thank you guys for letting me use it. And this ad popped up on Facebook, and clearly they were trying to reach you guys in Iowa. So they got me in Brookings. And so I did some research. I spent hours looking into Andrew Yang. And then I did what any rational person would do, and I got these giant Yang 2020 decals, and I put them on my Jeep. And then I got to Iowa. Because I had to tell you guys about Andrew Yang. Because this is the most important election of our lifetime. And not just because Donald Trump is up for re-election, but because under Andrew Yang, ending abject poverty is literally on the ballot in 2020. So, right now, I would like to introduce you guys to your Mitchell County Chair, Kurt Myers.
All right. That's why you came. Thank you for saying that. Welcome. It's a big day in Osage. We have not one but two presidential candidates in our midst today, and I'm so glad we were here. Don't let the weather deter us. We have a treat. We have a treat. There you go. I'm sorry. We have a treat in store. We're going to hear from a presidential candidate. Now that doesn't happen every day in Osage, and I'm really glad that it's happening twice today. Andrew Yang is an interesting, new, fresh face, fresh voice, fresh approach to politics. And this is a field that is not filled with novelty or innovation. And so when you have someone of that nature, you have to give them a careful look-see. And I'm delighted that you're here to do that in part today. There's some fresh creative thinking going on, not only in Andrew Yang's mind, but also in his entire campaign. And that's worth examining. He's a problem solver. He's been a nonprofit leader. He formed a nonprofit organization called Venture for America in an effort to make the world a better place. And when an entrepreneur makes a lot of money and then devotes him or herself to making the world a better place as opposed to pulling up the drawbridge and leading a life of luxury, you have to say, Andrew Yang is committed to the right things. He's got a 21st century approach, which is pretty necessary because we're now in the 21st century. So some of those ideas are new, some are refashioned, some are very, very exciting because we have 21st century challenges. One of the slogans is bringing humanity to politics, but I also think it's a matter of bringing politics to humanity. He's an entrepreneur, he's a philanthropist, he is an author, he is a lawyer, he is a husband and a father, and he's a Democratic candidate for President of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm Mitchell County and North Iowa welcome for Andrew Yang. It's all good. Did you notice how we kind of climax at the right moment? And it's kind of exciting. Then we get the 5 more minutes. So, what are you going to do?
We have folks from Minnesota here.
We have folks from Minnesota. If you're from Minnesota, raise your hand. I love it. I live a mile from Minnesota. As I tell people, if I shout loud enough, my voice would carry into Minnesota. Nobody would hear it, but my voice would carry across the state line into Minnesota. And as I often tell our folks that live in Lyle or in Austin, I said, they don't check at the state line as to whether or not you have an ID or, you can just come across. It's a great thing. So it's wonderful to have you come down from Minnesota. You all have the opportunity to be casting ballots already in Minnesota if you vote absentee in the Democratic primary. It's a Super Tuesday primary in Minnesota. And so people from Minnesota are already voting. They are the first in the nation to have a chance to vote. Of course, we know we're the first in the nation. February 3rd, if you haven't already, check to see where your caucus is going to be and you plan to caucus. you still have a couple of weeks. And some of the caucus locations are a little bit different this time.
And we have new precincts.
And we have new precincts. For example, my precinct typically has been Otranto and Newburgh. This year it's Otranto and Newburgh Rock. So I get to caucus with my friend Bruce Redefining. What a treat. So it's new lines, meaning that sometimes people are going to have to get a little bit off their, who moved my cheese here. So we're gonna have that experience now in a couple weeks. Are there people from outside of our new friend from South Dakota? Are there people from other states that are here today, other than Minnesota or Iowa? Yes, and where are you from?
Minnesota.
Oh, just Minnesota and Iowa, and at least one person from South Dakota. Any other states represented today? I know that there are some people here from Washington. Other states represented?
We're not a state.
No, that's a district. Any other states represented? It's a treat to have you here. I want to pay heed. Tony, can I see it? My friend Tony opened the doors of this wonderful establishment to house us today. Tony, thank you. A round of applause for Tony. Tony markets a product. It's called beer. If you haven't already sampled, you're in for a treat. Tony is a wonderful person and now a wonderful brewer. And if you don't yet know about Limestone Brewery or Limestone Beer, you're in for a treat. It's worth buying, and it's certainly worth drinking. Now,
Stretch that out.
without further ado, a warm welcome to President Evelyn.
It's fantastic to be here. Hello, Osage. Fantastic. I love this place so much. I walked past the axes. How many people have thrown axes back there? We definitely need to go back there and check it out. I barely made it over here for the remarks. It's a thrill to be here in Iowa because you all have so much power in your hands. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you're among the most powerful people in our country today. I did the math. Do you know how many Californians each of you is worth?
About a million?
Not quite that high. It's 1,000 each. So if you look around this room, oh look, more people. So if you look around this space, how many of us are there here today? I'm going to give a Trumpian estimate.
300.
There are 1,000 people. Biggest room anyone's ever seen. If there are 50 people here, that would be the equivalent of one football stadium full of Californians. That's the power you all have. And this is a place that I love campaigning in because this is one of the only places in the country where democracy actually works the way it's intended. The rest of our fellow Americans look up and they see our government as a series of pipes clogged full of money, clogged full of lobbyist cash, and they despair there's nothing they can do about it. They're generally right. There is next to nothing they can do about it. But you all can do a whole lot. You can flush the pipes clean very, very quickly. That's the magic. It's the magic of February 3rd. Now, most of you know I'm not a career politician. I'm an entrepreneur, problem solver, and I'm here to try and address a question that we've been struggling with for the last several years. It's a question that you've all thought about, but still hasn't come to an answer. How the heck is Donald Trump our president today? How did he win Iowa, the purplest of purple states, by almost 10 points in 2016? And you all remember that night well when he won. How did you all react? Oh, sinking feeling like, oh no. Someone at another event said bourbon. But we all have family members and friends and neighbors who are excited about Trump's victory. I know I do. And I know you do because, again, he won this state by almost 10 points. So if you were to turn on cable news any night since that night in 2016, why would you think that Donald Trump won?
Was that a rhetorical question?
No, it's not. I'm actually just try something out. Like Russia's on the list. What else?
I think one of the appeals, there's a lot of reasons, but a lot of people who voted for Trump I talked to said they just wanted something different.
Change.
The Democrats picked the status quo, the Republicans didn't.
Yeah, we've been looking for some kind of change for a while. Definitely. Change is on the list. Russia. What else?
Too many people didn't vote.
Turnout.
Anger.
Facebook. Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
Emails, misinformation, media.
Focused on the economy and business.
There's a young one, a young answer.
Ooh, a young hand. Go ahead. Neighbors. Oh, you have to explain that one a little bit. So these are the reasons we've been presented over the last number of months. But I'm a numbers guy. I went looking through the numbers for an answer, and I found it. We blasted away 4 million manufacturing jobs over the last number of years. And where were those jobs primarily based? Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, and 40,000 right here in Iowa. I've been to those towns, and imagine you've been to those towns. And after the plant closed, the shopping district closed. People started to leave, the school shrank, and that community has never recovered. That was the same story I saw play out in Missouri, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I spent the last 7 years running a nonprofit that helped create thousands of jobs, primarily in the Midwest and the South. And I was staggered by what I saw, where people were celebrating my work, and I felt like I was pouring water into a bathtub that had a giant hole ripped in the bottom. Water was rushing out. What we did to those manufacturing jobs, we're now doing to other parts of the economy. How many of you have noticed stores closing around where you work and live here in Iowa? And why are those stores closing? Amazon, that's right. Amazon's soaking up $20 billion in business every year, closing 30% of our stores and malls. Most common job in the economy is retail clerk. Average retail clerk's a 39-year-old woman making between $8 and $12 an hour. After her store closes, what is her next opportunity? Unclear. How much did Amazon pay in federal taxes last year? Zero. That is your math. 20 billion out, 30% of your stores closed, you get zero. And it's not just these kinds of changes that we see on our main streets. When you all call the customer service line of a big company, and you get the bot or software on the other end, I'm sure you do the same thing I do. When does you pound 000, say human, representative, human representative, over and over again until someone picks up the phone, right? Raise your hand if that's what you do. Yeah, we all do that. That software is miserable. You think to yourself, there's a human working at this company somewhere, and I'm going to find it. But in 2 or 3 short years, the software is going to sound like this. Hello, Andrew. How's it going? What can I do for you? It'll be fast, seamless, efficient. You might not even know it's software. What is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who work at call centers right now making between $10 and $14 an hour?
How about the ones in India?
How are the ones in India?
Or Philippines?
Sure, no, like what we're doing, the automation of labor, what's interesting is that if you look at where the United States falls in terms of the automation of labor, we're somewhere in the middle. But unfortunately, the incentives to automate away our labor are higher because we cost more. If you're in an environment where your costs are really low, you can be like, yeah, I'll pay these people like, the equivalent of like, $1 or $2 an hour. But in America, we're more expensive. We might cost $10, $14, $15 an hour, and then you stack on benefits on top of it, and we get more expensive. And then the incentives to get rid of us are really high. I spoke to a group of 70 CEOs in New York City, and I asked them, how many of you are looking at replacing your back office clerical workers with software and artificial intelligence? Guess how many hands went up out of 70?
70.
All 70, that's right. The fact is you could fire any CEO who didn't have his hand up, because their job is to maximize the bottom line. And if someone comes to you and says, I can get rid of your back office clerical workers and replace them with a software license, you have to do that. If you don't do that, then they will fire you the next quarter. That is the system that we have built. And the system now is reaching people that would never have imagined that their livelihoods would be affected. How many of you all know a truck driver here in Iowa? Truckers. Yeah, it's the most common job in 29 states. My friends in California are working on trucks that can drive themselves. They say they're 98% of the way there. A robot truck just transported 20 tons of butter from California to Pennsylvania 3 weeks ago with no human intervention. Why did they choose butter for this maiden voyage? I have no idea. But if you Google robot butter truck, you will see the story. At the end of the route was a giant stack of pancakes, Pennsylvania. I'm joking about the pancakes, but everything else is true. What is this going to mean for the 3.5 million truckers in our country, or the 7 million plus Americans who work in truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting and having a meal every day? How many of you all have been to Iowa 80 in Davenport? Yeah, me too. It's got a really above average buffet. They proudly say that 5,000 people stop at Iowa 80 every day. How many people will stop there when the trucks no longer have drivers? A lot less than 5,000. You can see that pretty quick. We're in the midst of the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, what experts are calling the fourth industrial revolution. When's the last time you heard a politician say fourth industrial revolution? 3 seconds ago. And I'm barely a politician. So this is what got me to run where Trump wins. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, let me go through the numbers. Wow, we're in the midst of this epic economic transformation. They're just going to speed up and accelerate because this technology is getting smarter all the time. And we are human beings. We're not getting smarter like that. And so I went to our leaders in Washington, D.C., and I said, hey, what are we going to do to help our people manage this transition? And what do you think the folks in D.C. said to me when I said, what are we going to do?
What transition?
What transition? That's one.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. That's pretty much what they said. The 3 answers I got were these. We cannot talk about this. We should study this further. And the third one's going to be familiar to you all. We must educate and retrain all Americans for the jobs of the future. Very responsible sounding, right? I said, hey, that sounds good, but I'm the numbers guy. I looked at the studies. Do you all want to guess how effective the government-funded retraining programs were for the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs in the Midwest? You know it's low because I'm anchoring you low. But you also know it's low because you know people. You know if you have 500 manufacturing workers who lose their jobs, they don't all march out and be like, I'm here for my coding boot camp, and then I'll be coding in no time. That's not the way human beings operate. The reality is that those retraining programs had success rates of between 0 and 15%. They were more or less a total failure. Almost half of the workers that lost their manufacturing jobs in the Midwest left the workforce and never worked again. Of that group, almost half filed for disability. You then saw surges in suicides and drug overdoses in those communities to the point where America's life expectancy has now declined for the last 3 years in a row. You know the last time America's life expectancy declined 3 years in a row? Great Depression is a great guess. It's a little bit earlier than that. It's the Spanish flu of 1918, global pandemic that killed millions. You have to go back 100 years to a point in American history where our life expectancy declined 3 years in a row. It is highly unusual for the life expectancy of a developed country to ever decline. It ordinarily just goes up because we're getting richer, stronger, healthier. But here in the US, it's going down and then down and then down again. So I said this to the folks in DC, and then one of them said, well, I guess we'll get better at retraining. And another one said something that brought me here to you all today. He said, Andrew, no one's going to do anything about this because fundamentally this is a town of followers, not leaders. And the only way we would do something about it is if you were to create a wave in other parts of the country and bring that wave crashing down on our heads. And I said, challenge accepted. I'll be back in 2 years. So that conversation was 2 years ago, and now I stand before you, fifth in the polls and rising to be the Democratic nominee. My campaign raised $16.5 million last quarter in increments of only $35 each. So my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. But there was no corporate PAC money in that. This is all just people trying to retake our government and to rewrite the rules of this economy to work for us and our families and not the megacorps that are just laughing all the way to the bank. So how the heck do we do that? If you were here today, first, raise your hand if you saw a TV ad with my face on it. This would be a nice data point for me. That's very good, because we spend a lot of money on those ads. So I know if you see these ads and see our campaign messaging, you've probably seen at some point that Andrew Yang wants to give every American $1,000 a month. Raise your hand if you've seen that. And I know the first time you saw that, you thought, that's a gimmick, that will never happen, that's too good to be true. But this is not my idea, and it's not a new idea. Thomas Paine was for this at the founding of our country, called it the citizen's dividend for all Americans. Martin Luther King, whose birthday we celebrated on Monday, was fighting for this in 1968 when he was killed. And I know this in part because I met with his son in Atlanta, and he said this is what his dad was fighting for. 1,000 economists, including Milton Friedman, endorsed this in the 60s. It was so mainstream it passed the U.S. House of Representatives twice in 1971 under Richard Nixon, the Family Assistance Plan, would have guaranteed an income floor for every American family. And then 11 years later, in the 80s, one state passed a dividend, where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that? Alaska. And how does Alaska pay for it? Oil. And what is the oil of the 21st century? Data, technology, AI, self-driving cars and trucks. A new study just came out that said that our data is now worth more than oil. How many of you saw that? How many of you got your data check in the mail last month? I know we laugh, but if our data is now worth billions of dollars a year, and we're not seeing a dime of that, where's all that money going? Amazon, Facebook, Google, Apple, and the trillion-dollar tech companies that are paying next to nothing back into our country. You see how this game goes? This feeling that we're getting depleted and sucked dry? It's because we are. And if you're a parent, raise your hand if you're a parent like me and Evelyn. If you're a parent at some point, you've had this sinking feeling that we're leaving our kids a future that is less stable, less secure, and less prosperous than the lives that we have led. And the reason we feel that way is because it is that way. If you were born in the 1940s, in the United States of America, there was a 93% chance you're going to be better off than your parents. That's the American dream. That's what brought my family here. That's what we've all aspired to. If you were born in the 1990s, you're down to a 50-50 shot, and it's declining fast. That is why the parents here feel the way we do. That is why Donald Trump won Iowa by almost 10 points. People do not feel like our kids' future is actually secure. We have left them this massive bill on so many levels. Not just the crazy deficit or climate change or a dysfunctional economy or the fact that college is now 2.5 times more expensive than it was even a few years ago. And they know it. And so what's happening right now in our country is we're being told how great things are. Record high corporate profits, record high GDP, record low unemployment. But you're looking around being like, why do things not feel great? Why does it not seem like things are going so well? So we have record high corporate profits. You know what else are record highs in the United States of America right now? Financial insecurity, stress, mental illness, substance abuse, overdose, suicides. Record lows right now in the United States, business formation among young people, getting married, having kids. All the things that you associate with a positive, thriving society are all at record lows in the United States of America right now. If your corporate profits are going up and your life expectancy is going down, which do you listen to? We know which one DC is listening to. DC can't even see people in life expectancy. They just see the dollar. That's what we have to change. So we get our tiny fair share of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every Facebook ad, eventually every robot truck mile and AI work unit, and deliver it all here to you in Iowa in the form of this dividend, build a trickle-up economy from our people, our families, and our communities up. Where will the money actually go after it's in your hands? How would you actually spend it? Grocery store, pay off debt. How much of it would stay right here in Iowa? Most of it. Not all of it. You might get your own Netflix password. But most of it would go to car repairs you've been putting off, and daycare expenses, and Little League signups, and local nonprofits, and religious organizations, maybe Democratic Party dues. These are the things that make our communities stronger, healthier, more vibrant. And this is what we can make happen for ourselves and our kids, just like that. I would say that we have to do it, because if we don't, then what are we facing? We're facing an economy that's going to become more and more punitive for us, for the next generation, over time. And here in Iowa, you've seen it more clearly than just about anyone in the country. It started on your farms with the mechanization of a lot of those jobs. Then it moved to the factories. We wiped up tens of thousands of manufacturing jobs. Now it's on your main streets. You can see the stores' lights going out one by one. We have to turn it around before it hits your highways. This is the greatest economic transformation in our country's history. And what we have to say to the rest of our fellow Americans is that economic value and human value are not the same things. That we all have intrinsic value as people and as citizens of this great country. So you have this dividend in place, builds a foundation for all of us, but then we have to actually start measuring our economy by what matters to us. Because right now we're being told that corporate profitability and our well-being are the same things, and we know that they are not. And one example I use that's close to home for me, my wife Evelyn is at home with our 2 boys every day, one of whom is autistic. How much is her work calculated at in our economic measurements? 0. Evelyn and stay-at-home parents around the country get a 0. How about caregivers who are taking care of ailing loved ones? Also a 0. How about activists and volunteers who are trying to make things better in the community? coaches and mentors trying to invest in the next generation. 95% of artists, unfortunately. Increasingly local journalists. We put almost 2,000 local newspapers out of business over the last number of months because all their revenue went up to the internet and they can't survive. You know what doesn't function as well if you don't have local news? Democracy, that's right. How the heck can you vote on what's going on in your community if no one's covering what's going on in your community? These are the things that we claim to value most as a country. Our families, our communities, our democracy. We're allowing them to get zeroed out one by one by one. And when I talked to my wife about this campaign in the beginning, she was amazed that this dividend for all of us was so mainstream in the 60s and 70s, came this close to being law, and now it requires the futurist Asian man to drag it into the light. And she's like, what the heck happened in the United States of America over the last 50 years that what seemed so common sense now seems so dramatic? And what I said to her is that we've been collectively brainwashed to think of all of us as being inputs into this giant economic machine. That's how you wind up with people saying that coal miners should become coders, even though that makes no sense. It's because if your value no longer is positive in the marketplace, then you have no value. And so then we have to magically transform you into something that does have value. And that's what we have to dispel in the United States of America, that we all have intrinsic value. Our kids all have intrinsic value. It doesn't matter what the marketplace says. It doesn't matter like whether or not they can learn to code. Like, the entire thing is backwards. We have to make the machines work for us instead of thinking that we all work for the machine. So this is the case that I'm thrilled to make to the rest of the country over the now days ahead. I've been campaigning here in Iowa for almost 2 years, and now it's almost game time. It's so exciting. I'm not running for president because I dreamt about being president. These were not the conversations of the Yang household, trust me. My parents were not like, you're gonna be president someday. They were more like, clean your room, you're terrible. I'm running for president because, like so many of you here in the room today, I'm a parent and a patriot. I have seen the future that lies ahead for our kids, and they deserve better. I want to give them better. I will fight for it. But we need you to fight for the same thing on February 3rd. We need to make a dramatic statement that this government is actually ours still and not captive to all the corporate interests. Donald Trump's our president today because he had a very simple message. It was very powerful. It worked on many, many people here in the state. He said he was going to make America great again. What did Hillary Clinton say in response? America's already great. Remember that? It's been a long 3 years, I know. But it's coming to an end now. That response did not go over well with many Americans because the problems do exist. We have to acknowledge their reality and depth and severity, but then we need real solutions that will actually move the country forward. We need to start measuring our economy not based on corporate profits, but based on our health and life expectancy, our mental health and freedom from substance abuse, the proportion of Americans that can retire in quality circumstances, clean air and clean water, how our kids are doing. I will update our economic measurements to these measures, and I'll report them to you every year at the State of the Union. I'll be the first president to use a PowerPoint deck at the State of the Union. We have to solve the real problems of this day. What were Donald Trump's solutions? Build a wall, turn the clock back, bring the old jobs back. Osage, you know we have to do the opposite of these things. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society to rise to the real challenges of the 21st century, like climate change. We have to evolve in the way we see ourselves and our work and our value. I am the ideal candidate for this job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you all very much. You may not know this, but math is an acronym, and what does it stand for? Make America think harder. That's right. That is your job on February 3rd. It's your job to move this country we love, not left, not right, but forward. And I know that is just where you'll take us. Thank you all so much. And now I'll take some questions.
You do have time to take some questions.
Yeah, I do.
Great.
Wow.
Questions?
Now you're going to conduct too. So
Yeah,
fun.
I'm gonna help you, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious what the this industrial revolution, how it's different than past industrial revolutions, which had periods of pain, but then ended up with people getting their jobs, new jobs. What makes this one worse? And then also, I'm curious on the dividend component. If everybody's getting that dividend that's pulling from Amazon and companies like that, what prevents them from raising the price to compensate for the tax increase, which results in the money back in their pockets again?
Well, these are fun questions, Tim. I love the comp to the first industrial revolution. So the first industrial revolution we think of as the turn of the century, essentially, when things became industrialized. And a few things happened during that industrial revolution. There were mass riots that killed dozens of Americans and caused the equivalent of billions of dollars worth of damage. Labor unions came up in 1886 to start fighting for workers' rights. We implemented universal high school in 1911 in part as a response to these changes. MIT, McKinsey, Obama, White House all say that this fourth industrial revolution will affect 2 to 3 times the number of workers on an annual basis than that industrial revolution did, because it's going to affect larger numbers of industries and people. So if the first one was smaller and resulted in these massive changes and problems and even violence and unrest and required massive changes in our educational system and everything else, and this one's going to be 2 to 3 times faster and more extreme, then you would expect there to be equivalent levels of both problems and solutions needed. Now, if we take the money from the Amazons of the world and put it back into your hands, they might get a sliver of it, but the fact is, if this money's in your hands, you're not going to spend it all on Amazon. You're going to spend it on like all the businesses in your communities that are going to make you stronger and healthier. So the extent that there's any offset is going to be very, very marginal in the scheme of things. This plan would increase the buying power of 90% plus of Americans. And I have been, frankly, I've been with some of like the richest people in our society. I've been with some of the poorest. We need to balance it out. If we were to sneak into Jeff Bezos' bank account and give him $1,000 a month, what impact would that have on the economy? 0. No one would even notice. It'd be like one digit changed in one account. But if you put $1,000 a month into the hands of one of the 78% of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, or the half that can't afford an unexpected $500 bill, how much of that $1,000 is going to find its way back into the economy? All of it. And it's not going to just find its way back in once. It's going to circulate multiple times. So this is going to create all sorts of additional economic growth and opportunity. And more people will want to do the work that they want to do because you know you're not going to starve to death if it doesn't work out. So I'm happy to say the money is going to be kept mainly in our hands and our communities. And that it's not that the Jeff Bezos of the world will siphon it all back out.
If you're going to give everybody $1,000 a month, and it's going to be a dramatic difference for the low-income people that have government benefits, how does that adjust their government benefits? Are they going to be denied rent assistance or food stamps?
Maybe we switch mics. Or maybe I'll take this mic. I don't know. I was sort of feeling attached to this mic. So the dividend is universal and opt-in. But if you opt in, then you choose to forego certain cash and cash-like benefits that do not include housing, do not include health care, do not include Social Security, so this would stack on top of Social Security. The fact is you can't retire on Social Security benefits alone, and we have a massive retirement crisis. I've talked to so many Americans who have fixed incomes, and they've seen their costs creep up and their income doesn't change. There's no better way to stress someone out than to put them in that situation. I have parents too. It took me a little bit to realize what it's like for a parent where you know your income's not changing anymore, and then your costs go up. Like that gives you a real sense of anxiety and scarcity. So this $1,000 is universal, it's opt-in, it stacks on top of most benefits, but it does replace cash and cash-like assistance that you're using as essentially a way to buy things like heating oil and food.
Penny had a question right there with the microphone.
And
your family migrated from Taiwan, right?
Yes.
Well, my son just migrated from the United States to Taiwan. He's bipolar. And unlike the United States, Taiwan has a national healthcare system. So when he has a manic episode and he's running down the street naked because he's the Monkey King, I'm not worried about him being shot in the back. He He's a mixed race, so he looks very threatening in the United States. In Taiwan, he gets much better treatment. He gets, put in the hospital, the same meds. He's doing really well there. And so, one of the crises we have in this country is so many people who lack any health care. So my son moved to Taiwan, and now he's a permanent resident, so he can have health care.
Thank you for the story, Penny. So my parents immigrated to this country as students in the 60s. They met at UC Berkeley. My father got his PhD in physics and generated a bunch of patents. And so I used to think that everyone's dad had a PhD. I used to go around being like, what's your dad's PhD? And then one day someone was like, here's what his PhD is. And I was like, oh no, what did I do wrong? I learned. So we're very, very grateful to this country. They came here for the American dream, and it's worked out for me and my brother. I have 2 boys now, my uncle. So I have a deep love for the U.S. And was a little sad when my parents actually moved back to Taiwan. And they moved back to Taiwan and experienced the healthcare system, and they tell me about it, and they're just like, hey, you wouldn't believe it. Like, I have a problem, I go in, they just like solve the problem, and then they ask me for like $5 for like the heck of it, and then like, they just said the first time they experienced it, they were like, that's it? And so they went back to Taiwan, and they had all these provisions where like, oh, we have to make sure we have healthcare in the U.S., we have to make sure they have healthcare in the U.S., and they went back there, and they're like, I'm not sure we need healthcare in the U.S., because we're kind of enjoying this model. And the United States is much, much wealthier than Taiwan. We are, orders of magnitude. So why the heck is healthcare such a miserable, costly mess for us when these poorer countries just serve the people in various ways? And I could go through a bunch of things. We need to get healthcare off of the backs of American families. We're paying for it in so many really, really devastating ways. Where I talk to so many Americans who are rationing drugs or saying like I have to choose between drugs and heating oil or food. And why is that? It's because we're getting gouged by these drug companies to the extreme. So I'm going to just go through, and this is emblematic. This is how we get the prescription drug prices down. Number one, we say the government can negotiate for lower prices on our behalf. Seems common sense, can't do it now because the drug lobbyists have blocked it. Number two, drug companies are not allowed to charge us more than they charge citizens of other countries. Right now, they're charging us 2, 3, 4 times as much, even though we subsidize the drug's development. Does that make sense to anyone? No. Number three, if you fail in number 2, we can license the drug from you forcibly. And then number 4, manufacture in a public facility. And number 5, we're allowed to import drugs from other markets to actually bring prices down. Do you think that this would bring drug prices down? This is the only way to bring drug prices down. If we all decided to devote our lives to standing outside of the drug company headquarters saying, do the right thing, it would do absolutely nothing. They do not care. They do not care about doing the right thing. What do they care about? Maximizing profits. That's it. So what you have to do is you have to set up a system where if they take it too far, then they lose profits. That's the only way to change their behavior. And I'm going to suggest to you that the only way we make that happen is you get someone into the White House that owes no one anything from the drug companies and the other companies, the corporate interests that are in Washington. We joke that of course the companies would never send the anonymous Asian man as like, oh, this'll work. No one's ever heard of this guy. like, let's send him out. Like, I'm just a parent and a citizen who believes we need to make our government work for us again. And it starts with our healthcare system, because the healthcare system is breaking our backs, and it does not need to be this way. We're spending $3.6 trillion on our healthcare to worse results because our system's not designed to make us healthy. What's it designed to do? Make money for the drug companies, the private insurance companies, and the device manufacturers. We need to break their backs, and I'm the man for that job, because it's gone on for way too long.
All right.
Mr. Andrew Yang, sir, I'm glad to meet you, Mr. President. I got a question. For people with disability, how do you propose it that people always tell me that because people on Social Security disability is going to run out eventually. How do you propose you can help people with disability in America?
It's an important question for me and my family, in part because one of our boys is autistic. And to me, being special needs or autistic or disabled is the new normal in our country. We should just face facts. How many of you all have someone who resembles that in your family or neighborhood or community? I mean, we all do.
Well, I'm disabled. I'm motor vehicle accident since 1998, May 20th, 1998. I was in a coma for 3 months, and then in the coma I got dropped foot, I couldn't walk and all that stuff, and I went to intensive therapy to get back to being somewhat normal. I'll not be normal because I'm brain damaged. And I mean, how do you, people in America are saying people with disabilities got free ticket and all that stuff, and I think that's a bunch of crap because you don't have free ticket. I work in a shelter workshop for NIVIC at 2 places, the shelter, the NIVIC Work Center in Mason City and the Mason City Library job work center.
It is not your fault, sir, that you were in an auto accident, I'm sure. Just like it's not my son's fault that he was born autistic.
No, but why do
Like, what we have to do is say to ourselves, look, we all have value as people. We're the richest, most advanced society in the history of the world. Our economy is up to $21 trillion a year and counting. And I have been with the places, I've been to the places where there are the vast concentrations of wealth in this country. And trust me when I say that there is a lot we can do for our people and we can 100% afford it. And here's one way I can prove it to you. Do you all remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout of Wall Street 12 years ago during the financial crisis? No, none of us voted for that. And do you remember anyone in DC being like, where are we going to get the money to bail out the banks? Do you think we have the $4 trillion? No, there was no discussion of that. When push came to shove with the banks, they were like, $4 trillion, here you go. If you had a choice between giving the banks $4 trillion or keeping Americans in their homes, which would you have chosen? Yes, we all would have chosen that. But our government, again, does not care about homeowners as much as it does keeping the Wall Street bankers happy, so they shoveled $4 trillion to the banks. They called it quantitative easing and hoped we wouldn't notice. I was so disgusted by this, I quit my job, spent 7 years running a nonprofit to help create thousands of jobs around the country just to try and wash the stench off, and I had nothing to do with it. I was just in the vicinity. It was disgusting. And so the fact that there are Americans who are suffering and being force-fed these lines like, oh, we don't have enough money for you, we don't have enough money for our people. Oh, we have the money. We have $4 trillion for the Wall Street banks. We have hundreds of billions for the pharma companies. Anytime they need a bailout, we're just there with a bag of money. But when you and your family start to struggle and suffer, you're on your own, your fault. And that's what we have to change in this country. We have to let people know, oh, we have the resources and it's time to treat ourselves at least as well as we treat the banks.
How many proposals you can help people with disabilities and not rob Social Security? No, can you say you want to give
You don't need to worry about Social Security going bankrupt. Social Security will never go bankrupt as long as we actually choose to make it whole, which I would do. And then we need to do more for people who are struggling in various ways. We have to humanize our economy and say that, you know, like your value is yours, independent of whether or not you can quote unquote like, you know, like earn it in a corporate environment. There are many, many different ways to earn it in this country.
Why do people keep saying Social Security can go
I
bankrupt?
have a question, but I'm not 100% sure on it. When you talk about like our climate crisis and stuff like that, you had also talked about getting away from beef and chicken and stuff because they pollute and everything, but then that's going to drive our farmers out of business if the prices go so high we can't afford the meat.
You know, like I eat meat every day. I love meat, and we need to move towards sustainable sources of energy, which would, in my mind, include some sort of carbon fee and dividend. But the carbon fee is going to fall not on the livestock producers and the rest of it. It's going to fall on fossil fuel companies and big industries that emit at very, very high levels. So to me, I believe in agriculture. I believe in livestock as really the lifeblood of this country. Like the ability to feed yourself is core. And to me, if anything, we have to do more for small farmers in particular. We're finding it harder to compete with these large agricultural concerns that are consolidating the farms up, competing in ways that the small farmers cannot. And then the small farmers, when they look around and say, hey, can I pass this farm along to my children? The children are looking up being like, I'm not sure if this is what I want. And then owners are like, well, what do I do? And then of course there's the megacorp there being like, I'll buy your farm, but I'll offer you about 30% of what it's worth, and maybe you don't have a choice. So these are the things that we have to try and change for small farmers in particular, because it reminds me very much of a lot of other things that are happening in our economy, where like the big guys have all these advantages and just sort of roughshod. And that's what we have to try and balance out. That's in a lot of industries. That's in the banks, that's in retail, and that's in agriculture as well. Well, where'd my conductor go? If I'm not without a conductor, I just give the man the mic.
Right here.
All right, thanks.
That was it. Last question. Andrew's going to go to the back and throw some axes. Please join us, cheer him on, and also take some selfies.
Oh, yes.
Thank you all. We need you to come into caucus on February 3rd. We need to fight this out and leave our kids a future that they'll actually be excited about. Thank you, Osage. Let's throw some axes and take the picture.
We're going to take Andrew to the back.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Start lining up.
All right, stream. This is what we need right now. Andrew has a $1 million donation goal by 11:59 p.m. EST tonight. And currently, if I go to his website at yang2020.com and look at the donation goal, we are only at 342,000, and we have till 11:59 p.m. to reach $1 million. So what we need you all to do right now is click here and go to theyanggame.com, which brings up this Secure Act Blue page where we are raising money for Andrew Yang. Your contributions go directly to Andrew Yang. You can donate anything from $1 or higher, $5, $3, $2, $4, $4.20, $10, $20, $20, $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000. And whoever has the highest donation will get a shout out from Andrew. Currently, the top donation is $50. I know someone in the chat can raise the ball. Where are they going? Get out of here.
No our way around. Bad.
Who am I talking to? Yeah, did you?
Back there, I guess.
What are we doing? Exactly. You're awesome, Tony. Thanks. Appreciate it. Finding stuff right. We've already got I've signed the waiver now. If I no one is to blame but me. Okay. That's the safety rule. Second way, single handed. A little more manual way to do it. Actually, I throw better two-handed now, especially basically, it's not like a baseball. You don't same idea. All the wrist, straight back. You want to step in the opposite foot. Step with the opposite kind of do it. I love it. I gotta get on the stick. Yeah. You might be here longer than you have. No, don't say that. How fun was that? All right.
Which one do you like more, bowling or axe throwing?
Axe throwing. Axe throwing, the new craze sweeping the nation. Yeah.
We're just gonna.
Guys, if that doesn't make you want to donate to Andrew Yang, I don't know what will. We have a new donation leader. Christine at $100 is the new donation leader. Would you like a shout out from Andrew Yang? Then donate right now to Christine. I mean, not to Christine, to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link.
We're out. I need to go out. Excuse me.
Like, honestly, if that doesn't make you want to donate to Andrew Yang's campaign, I don't know what will, because that was amazing. Thank you, Roger, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Christopher, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Chris, for the $50 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Ben, for the $51 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Adam, for the $10 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Israel, for the $4.20 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Jesse, for the $51 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, David, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Andrew, for the $4, great name, by the way, for the $4.20 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Kelvin, for the $25 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Christine, for the $100 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Christine is our current donation leader to get the shout out from Andrew Yang. Thank you, Jeffrey, for the $52 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Joe, for the $51 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Franklin, for the $25 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Kathleen. You donate every single day for the $10 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Robert, for the where was I? Robert, for the $20 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Chris, for the $10 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, David, for the $1 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. David actually did another $1 donation earlier through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Gia, for the $50 donation. Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, David, for the $5 donation. Danielle for the $25 donation. Major for the $50 donation. Joel for the $50 donation. Nina for the $50 donation. Dakota for the $10 donation. Silvestre for the $10 donation. Ramon for the $5 donation. And hold up here. Hold up. Christine has just upped her bid. Christine is actually now at $300. Christine donated $100 at 12:10 p.m. But then Christine at 10:46 a.m., right when we cut the end of the last town hall, donated $200. Christine is our current donation leader at $300. Thank you, Catherine, for the $50 donation. Romiel for the $5 donation. Kay for the $180 donation. Caged for the $180 donation. Guys, make sure you get your donations in early because it looks like a ton of people came in late during the end of the last selfie line and donated to Andrew Yang. The earlier you get in your donation, the more likely it is you get the shout out because my emails getting your donation alerts come in about 5 minutes late after the donation. Now I can bring up the internal ActBlue page, but even then, Andrew's time's limited and I have to grab him while I can with the limited opportunity I can. Thank you, Chris, for the $50 donation, Andrew Yang. Thank you, Ben, for the $51 donation, Andrew Yang. Thank you, Ruby, for the $10 donation, Andrew Yang. Christine is our donation leader right now at $300. Thank you, Edward, for the $10 donation, Andrew Yang, through the yanggame.com. Yo, get Darth Clyde to cut that axe clipping clip out at the end when Andrew was doing like a ninja dance and then got 2 straight strikes. Alright, stream, I gotta do something real quick. I'll be back.
Thanks. Let me get my stuff.
I told your campaign staff what you should do. They said if we ask them to,
They know me well.
yeah.
Well, good luck with everything. Thank you very much. There's very little yet we can do. You have to make things better for your generation.
Andrew, check it out. I'm on there. It's getting after it.
House full of young people living in our
Never rented one of my cars. Now I gotta fix the car.
We'll just go together, how's that? Really? Just walk, you know? Wait, she got her phone in there?
Yes.
Hey, you get two for the price of one. Oh no. Okay, three. Woohoo!
1, 2, 3. Nice.
I'll bring it back.
I love talking so much.
I know. I visited my son there once. Thank you. Nice,
Yeah, I love Taipei. My parents live there.
So they moved back. I know, it's like a better health system.
Oh, yeah? Perfect. Make your way up there. No. She's staff.
We're safe, don't worry about it.
Yeah, Taiwanese
Yeah.
people are very, very warm.
I know.
I love him.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Amazing.
All right. He says we're going to win. All right.
This is February. I don't know, volunteer out here in California.
Nice. Thank you.
It's already
Thank you, Sam, for the $50 donation. Thank you, Jen, for the $110 donation. Thank you, Mue, for the $25 donation. Thank you, Nelson, for the $25 donation. Thank you, Sulky, for the $10 donation. Thank you, Renan, for the $25 donation. Thank you, Danny, for the $5 donation. Thank you, Vicky, for the $10 donation. Thank you, Charles, for the $25 donation. Thank you, Michael, for the $250 donation. Hold up, what does that mean? Michael. Michael, you are $50 short of being the donation leader. Did you like a bumper sticker, sir? Awesome. Oops, my bad. What? Keep this out of your way.
Don't have too heavy a camera.
Oh yeah, luckily. Yeah. Thank you, Donald, for the $5 donation. Thank you, Edward, for the $10 donation. Thank you, Ruby, for the $10 donation. Okay, I already rubbed those ones off. Press pull. Hold on.
Well, I found that people from different political backgrounds show up to our events. And I think they talk about us sometimes on Fox or through podcasts that maybe speak to people of different political backgrounds. And so they want to come check me out, see whether I'm someone they can support. And I'm happy to say that at just about every event, someone will come up to me and say, like, I supported Donald Trump last time, I'm going to support you this time. And I tell them that they count double because that's how Democrats should be campaigning with me.
Tulsi Gabbard, your friend, just filed a lawsuit against Hillary Clinton. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I don't have much to add. I mean, Tulsi is a fighter who doesn't take much lying down. And so if she thought that was the best move, like, you know, that she's going to do it. To me, the country, we need to be focused on solving the problems of this time. And that's where my focus is. I know Tulsi wants that too. So that's where I want all of our attention.
Mr. Ray, you've been campaigning for about 2 years now, almost at the finish line here. What's been the most touching moment that you've had on the trail in these past 2 years?
That's so many. Recently, it's been women coming and thanking Evelyn and thanking me over the last number of days. Many parents of autistic children have come and said that they feel like they are being seen for the first time when they felt so alone in their struggles. And Evelyn and I know what that's like because it's very isolating when you have special needs. You feel like you have to figure out on your own, and many families don't have the resources. You have really heartbreaking exchanges with Americans most days. There's a lot of struggle. We can do so much more for our people. That's what this campaign's about. So I certainly can't comment on any one moment. I have very, very touching exchanges just about every day. I'm going to take it, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good to see you. I want to throw one next.
Armando, we'll see you at the next one, huh?
No, man, I'm actually out, but
that's right.
I'll pick you guys up on Monday.
Sounds good, dude.
Remember that time, though?
Safe travels and you can
Too much fun. You wanted a photo like that? Hang on. Which I did not get yet. Hang on. There you go. Yeah, look at me. Oh! Let's just leave it at that. No, I'm not. I hit my own act. That was pretty good. Oh, wow, I got a sick action shot. Let's go.
Andrew, could I get a shout out for Christine?
Sure. Hey, Christine, thank you so much for being here in Osage in Iowa. You're throwing an axe of money into I don't know. Who's the enemy here? Inertia. Lack of humanity. Thank you. Appreciate your support a great deal. Supporting us, supporting this campaign. We're going to take it all the way thanks to people just like you. Thank you.
Let me mute this real quick.
Yeah.
All right, stream. So Christine was our donation leader, and Christine got the shout out. But thank you, Johnny, for the $5 donation, and Zhao for the $50 donation. Very much appreciated.